Hello and welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm John F. Harrison, your host. I'm a certified financial planner, an ordained minister, a multi-published author, and the president of Aspire Financial Advisors, and I will be your tour guide through all things financial, from recreation to retirement, from cars to college. If it affects your money, it affects your life, and we'll deal with it here on The Bottom Line. Now, in most episodes, I limit the discussion to one primary topic so that we can go into the depth that you need on that topic. But today, I'm going to make an exception because there's something very current and very important that I want to bring to your attention. Call it breaking news about inflation and shortages. It feels like our country's food supply is under attack. Now, it may be a conspiracy, it may not be, but it will affect you either way. So we're going to start by talking about that. Afterward, we'll discuss why the biggest impact on your financial future probably won't come from an inheritance or a hot stock tip, but from how you think about money. That topic is called cash and conscience, and we'll deal with both things when we come back from this short break. Welcome back. Talked about inflation in a prior episode. If you haven't been living under a rock, then you've been experiencing it. The COVID shutdown of 2020 and all the supply chain disruptions from China, and now the war in Ukraine, all these things have been having a global impact. The Ukraine war will affect everything from food to fertilizer, and even our computer industry, since that country gives us 90% of our semiconductor grade neon, and half of their output has already been halted. So we're going to feel some of that. But there's something new and kind of odd that's come on the scene recently that's adding still more to the stress and the strain on our supply chain network. Fires. Yes, fires. There has been a string of fires at food processing plants all over the country, especially in the last 2 months. Let me give you some examples. March 22nd, Oregon, a place called Shearer's Foods was a potato chip plant that disappeared in a boiler explosion and cost about 400 employees their jobs. It was a place that processed Frito-Lay products, among other things. March 28th, Arizona, the Maricopa Food Pantry had a fire that was fed by the diesel fuel that powers their institutional or industrial refrigerators. They lost 15,000 pounds of meat and 40,000 pounds of canned goods. April 13th, California. Taylor Farms burned to the ground. It was a major supplier to both the U.S. and Canada, had $2 to $3 billion in annual revenues, was Walmart Food Supplier of the Year in 2022, and supplied bulk salads to restaurants and schools. Same day, April 13th, Idaho, a small plane crashed into not Taylor Farms, but Gem State Processing, place that does potatoes, 18,000 acres of potatoes every year. And that also got knocked somewhat out of commission, although the plant wasn't horribly damaged. April 18th, Oregon. Azure Standard, the USA's largest independent food distributor, had a major fire, and all of their liquid products, honey, vinegar, oils, will be out of stock. and their fruit processing will be offline. And then just April 24th, Covington, Georgia, another small plane crashes into a food processing plant, this one in Georgia, and again, didn't take out the whole place, but did some damage. And it was just interesting how many of these food processing and food distributor related fires have occurred just in the last month or two. Now, there are always two reactions to bits of news like this. The first reaction is from people who see a conspiracy theory. It's an act of war by some enemy like Russia. And these people foresee pretty much the end of the world. Everything is going to crash and burn. We're in a lot of trouble. Go into your bunker and hunker down. The other reaction is the people who say, it's a whole lot of nothing. We have 36,000 food processing plants in this country, and this won't really make a dent, and you won't feel this. The truth between the it's the end of the world and it's nothing at all, the truth is usually somewhere in the middle. Whether or not you see conspiracy theory or coincidence doesn't so much matter. The shortages and empty shelves in stores that we were seeing before any of this happened really can only get worse. So if you take the COVID shutdown and add the shutdowns in China, and you add the war, and you add the Port of Los Angeles situation, and then you add these fires to that situation, there's going to be a time to stock up on some things. And if you don't feel like that time is now, then probably nothing will make you feel that that time is now. I'm an optimist, but I never try to put myself in a position where I need everything to go well. And you may be asking yourself, wait a minute, I thought this was a financial show. And it is, because when there are shortages, when there are gaps in the supply chain, when supplies go down, prices go up. So stocking up on things you will need now will likely save you money when those things cost more later, or those things simply aren't available later. So what should you do? Have extras of pretty much everything you would need. I'm talking toothpaste, soap, deodorant, paper goods. Remember bath tissue from 2020? Laundry detergent, light bulbs, batteries, and yes, food, especially food. Lots of food that stores well and can stay in your pantry for years. If you have it, never need it, that's fine. No harm done. If you need it and don't have it, that's a bigger problem. Remember what happened in Venezuela? It used to be a prosperous country, and then when that economy got run into the ground, people there had hyperinflation to deal with. The whole country was losing weight because it didn't have enough food, and people were literally reduced to eating their pets. Do I see something like that happening here? No, I don't see anything that extreme coming here. But do I see people maybe being in a situation where they wish they had a little more of this or that, and now this and that is hard to find? Absolutely. So look at it as preparation for what could be. You always want to be ready for what could happen and not just what's likely to happen. You wear a seatbelt in your car, not because you think an accident is likely. If an accident was likely and you thought so, you'd stay home. But you wear it because an accident is possible, and if it happens, it could be really bad. You have a spare tire. Hopefully, you've got a car with a spare tire. So many of them don't these days. But if you have a spare tire, you have it, and you keep it full of air, because it's possible to get a flat, and that will mess your day up if you can't fix it. You don't really think it's likely. You probably haven't used that spare tire for years, but you wouldn't feel comfortable driving around without it because it could save you if something happened. And that's the same with emergency supplies. So think of emergency supplies the same way you think of emergency funds. You have emergency funds in case something completely unexpected, unpredictable happens and you've got to deal with it in cash, then you've got some extra cash. Think of emergency supplies as what you need if something happens, maybe even something predictable like what we've been talking about. But it's better to have it than not have it. So I just wanted to get that out there. Don't want to alarm anybody, but it would be a shame if the ripple effects from all these things hit us later on down the line, and we weren't ready just because we didn't see it coming. You can't depend, by the way, on the media to tell you about these things. They will keep you talking about the latest situations in the trial with Johnny Depp, but they won't help you connect the dots about what's going on with the economy and the supply issues in our country. So if you can stay on top of that, do a little bit of reading, do a little bit of surfing online, see what's going on, and make sure that you are prepared for whatever could happen and not just whatever is likely to happen. So far, so good? Excellent. I'll leave that there, and then we'll go to our main topic of this episode, cash and conscience. It's time to ask yourself what you believe. And yes, I shamelessly took that from an Indiana Jones movie, Indiana Jones, and I believe it was the Holy Grail or some such thing. But the line is good, and it really does apply, because our beliefs about money can ruin our relationship with money before we even start making money. What is money in your mind? Is it positive? Is it negative? I can remember as a child hearing people misquote the Bible verse that said, they would say money is the root of all evil. And we know, of course, the Bible doesn't actually say that. What it says is the love of money is the root of all evil. But some people really do believe the misquote is true. I was raised hearing the expression, behind every great fortune is a crime. And it gives you the idea that having money, especially having lots of it, is kind of unclean. There's a reason you hear the expression filthy rich, or you hear about big business making obscene profits. It makes the whole subject of being very successful, despite the fact that Abraham was very successful and very rich, and Job was very successful and very rich, and God said to Israel that it was he that gave them power to get wealth. Despite all that, if we position money as a bad thing, we will subconsciously not want it, and we will sabotage our own efforts to get ahead. I think some of the bad feelings about money come from a misunderstanding of what it is and how it works. Money is not primarily physical. I know if you think of pieces of colored paper, if you think of little discs of metal, maybe you think of the stripe on the side of your credit card or your debit card, but those things aren't money. Money is actually more spiritual than physical. What I mean by that is this. Physical things require certain laws of physics to be followed, like a physical object can't be in more than one place at one time, but a spiritual thing can. And that's a really important distinction. And when we come back from this break, we'll talk about why. And once you figure out that distinction, I think it'll make you a whole lot more optimistic. It'll make you a whole lot less envious. It'll make you a whole lot less angry about financial truth and let you get about the business of getting ahead. So when we come back from this important business, we'll talk about that.
People say I've got a great smile. Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
Welcome back. Now, the first thing you really have to internalize about money and the way you think about money is that money, like people, is more spiritual than physical. And what I mean by that is physical things are subject to the laws of physics and spiritual things are not. Physical things can be measured in a lab. They can be weighed. They can be measured. They can have their temperature taken, all these kind of things. If I have, and here's an illustration I got from a rabbi I saw, I believe his name is Lapin. But if I have a song in my heart, you can't weigh it, you can't measure it, it has no dimensions, you can't photograph it, but you wouldn't argue that it doesn't exist. I have that song in my heart. Now, most people's attitudes about money come from the misconception that money is purely physical and thus obeys the laws of physics. If a physical object is here, then it cannot simultaneously be over there. If somebody moves my cup of water and I look down and see that it's gone, the only logical conclusion is that someone took it from me. But let's go back to the spiritual thing. Let's talk about that song that was in my heart. If I share the song with you, teach you the tune, teach you the melody, teach you the words, now you have it too, but you haven't taken it from me. The song simply multiplied. It wasn't a zero-sum game where either I have it or you have it. We can both have it. Maybe another way to look at it, and again, I thank the rabbi for this illustration, but it really is apt. Candles versus cake. Most people think of money like the cake. There's only so much of it. And if this person gets a big slice, then there's less left for you. And that breeds insecurity and jealousy and envy and all these sort of things. But money isn't really like the cake. Money is more like the candles on the cake. If I've got a lit candle and you've got a candle that's not lit, you can light your candle from mine, and it doesn't take anything from me. I still have my lit candle, and now so do you. And someone else can light their candle from yours, and we can spread light everywhere without losing that which we have. Money can be created. Well, how is money created? Money is created when you serve somebody. There's all kinds of ways to get money from people. Most of them aren't legit. You can hold them up with a gun. You can sit on a corner and beg. But the best way and the most normal way to get money from other people is to serve them in some way, make their life better in some way, improve their circumstance in some way. And if you do that in a way that people appreciate, then they will voluntarily give you money. That person can be your boss, that person can be your customers, that person can be the general public at large. If you improve the lives of other people in ways that they appreciate, then they will it creates money. And that is the thing that the zero-sum game people do not catch. So think of money as less like an object and more like an idea. If I give you an idea, you can go home and run with it, but you haven't taken it from me. So once we realize that, it frees us from the negative emotions of looking at someone who has a lot and thinking, they must have what they have because the person over there doesn't. They must have gotten rich off someone else's back. They must have taken something from me to have what they have. That's not fair. That gives you an attitude that's not fun to live with and doesn't really advance your cause any. Once you realize it is within your power to create money, as long as you can draw from the limitless wells of ideas and find ways to serve somebody in a way that improves their life, then money won't be far behind. And that's probably the most important way in which money aligns with your values. If you think of it as a zero-sum game, if you think of it as something vaguely dirty, then lining money up with your values will ensure that you never let yourself have very much of it. And even if that makes you unhappy, you won't let yourself have very much of it, subconsciously. But if your value is such that money is the natural response to my having served somebody, then you can feel good about having that. And when that aligns with your values, then you'll live your life in such a way as to increase the odds of you making and keeping money. So money and values working together are an important thing. And there are lots of ways that money can align with your values, or you can make your money align with your values. One of them is by investing in things that you feel good about because it aligns with your values. There's all kind of names for this. It at one point was called values-based investing. It can be called socially conscious investing. A big phrase today is ESG, which stands for environmental, social, and I'm losing what the G stands for, but ESG is another way of saying values-based or socially conscious investing. There is such a thing as morally screened or morally filtered investing. The difference between the two is what they seek to include and what they seek to avoid. It makes sense that you don't want to invest in things that conflict with your fundamental values as a person. For instance, if you're a doctor, a nurse, a respiratory therapist, you probably don't want to buy stock in Altria, which is the big cigarette maker that used to be called Philip Morris, since they produce a product that creates the problem you're trying to solve. If you're in the healthcare field, you're trying to keep people healthy, including avoiding and treating things like various cancers. And since we know that cigarettes produce these things, if you're on the front lines fighting the war against those, you probably don't want to invest in a cigarette maker. If you're a pacifist, you probably don't want to invest in the manufacture of weapons of war. If you're not a pacifist, that might not be an issue for you. So the first thing that values-driven investing does is asks you, are there things that are so contrary to your values that you wish to avoid being involved with them? And there are all sorts of mutual funds and other investments that are values-based that will exclude things based on different criteria. The other side of it is the positive side. Do I particularly want to encourage companies and help companies succeed by investing in things that support my values? Maybe it's stewardship. Environmental stewardship, taking care of the planet. Maybe it's taking care of their workers. This is a company that makes a profit, but they won't do it by hiring slave labor in a third world country so that they can produce the stuff cheaply and have a bigger profit when they sell it here, but they are ethical toward the people who work for them. There are a lot of mutual fund companies in this values-based space. So when you begin investing, you don't have to just invest indiscriminately and know that you're including things that you don't like and don't want, or that you can't encourage things that you do like and do want. Here's a couple of names to know. Some of the biggest names in this space are Parnassus funds, iShares, Putnam, Vanguard, Calvert, Eventide is another one, which has some rather Christian-based values in what they do. But the point is, there's so many funds. If you'll take your time, either do some research or ask for some guidance, how can I invest in things that line up with my values so that I feel good about what I own, so that I feel good about where my profits are coming from? That's something you can do. So there is no cognitive dissonance between what you're buying and what your values are. So with all of that said, let's see if we can sum up a little bit about where we've been in this episode. I'm not a big fan of predictions. Predictions in general tend to make people look bad. Still, I like to prepare for what is possible, knowing that I don't know the future and that nobody else does either, regardless of what they say in the headlines or the YouTube videos. I don't know the future, don't know what's coming, but I know what's possible, and I like to prepare for what is possible. Again, you wear a seatbelt because accidents are possible. You have a spare tire because flat tires are possible. not because you think either of those things are really likely to happen to you the next time you get in the car, because if you thought that, you probably wouldn't get in the car. Since the consequences would be severe, you seek to insulate yourself against that. So accumulate emergency money and emergency stuff. It's not where you want to be right now, but you can see where you'd like to be in those regards. Then move in that direction and you'll be doing the right thing. And that is probably the most important thing I can tell you in this episode, is to be aware of your thinking about money. Because to the extent that we think it's an unclean thing, that we think it's a necessary evil, that we think it's something kind of tainted, then we'll sabotage our own efforts to have it. But if we understand it as the reward for service, and we bend our mind to being in service to other people, then we know not only is it not bad, but there's not a limited supply of it. It's limited only by our idea of how much service we can be, our inspiration in that regard. And that, more than any fund or any stock or any cryptocurrency, that will revolutionize your financial life. I know it changed mine. We'll be back to say goodbye and wrap everything up after this break.
The Well Jamaican Restaurant, located at 55 Mazio Drive in Randolph, Mass., where good food and fellowship meet daily. Check out our variety of fresh and tasty entrees and sides from our menu or the website, thewellja.com, like our jerk chicken, oxtails and rice, seafood, desserts, and more. With our drinks and juices made fresh daily, you have the option to dine in or take out. We can also cater your special event, or you can book our private dining room and let us host your special event. At the Well Jamaican Restaurant, we pride ourselves on providing superior quality food and beverages, and of course, great customer service. Next time you're in the mood for Jamaican cuisine, meet us at the Well Jamaican Restaurant. Become part of the family. Connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. The Well, where good food and fellowship meet daily.
That wraps up another episode. I'm glad you were here to join us today. Just a little preview, when we meet again, I'll be talking with you about what everybody needs to know about Social Security. Even young folks have some things you need to know now about Social Security to avoid some unpleasant surprises later. So we'll be talking about that next episode. For now, always remember this: progress is better than perfection. And if you know the direction to go, you're making progress if you're going in that direction. You may not be exactly where you want to be financially, but if you know where you want to be, then all you need is a little direction for the journey. And that's the bottom line.